discretion is also a very important aspect in process management. So basically, parent is allowed to create children process, and that children also have the capability to create another children process. So by having this mechanism, you can have what we call a tree of processes. Now, to identify the currently running process, it can be identified through process identifier or PID. So basically, it is simply in index of the currently running process. Now, in terms of how to share resources among the running process, so for one option is for the children process to have shared resources provided by its parents. That is one option. Another option is both parent and child need to request the resources separately from the OS. It means they have no resources that are shared together. Instead, if they need, if parent or the child need to have access to resources, they need to request it from the OS separately. Comes to execution option. One option is for the parent and the children to be executed concurrently. That is one option. That means they can execute concurrently. The other option is the parent to wait for the children to be terminated. That means the execution of the parent process can only be involved after all the process, the running process of the children are terminated. So that means parent process are executed last. Parent process is executed last. So it needs to wait for the process of the children to be terminated first. Okay, in terms of address space, children can duplicate the parent program, or another option is for the children to have a new program loaded into it. So in a Unix example, in Unix system, a new process can be created through system call, fork system call. Another option is through exec system call. Normally in your program, when you want to create a new process, you use the fork system call, and then after that you can invoke the exec system call, so that whatever process in the memory will be replaced by the new program that you invoke using system call. This is an example of a tree of process in a Linux system. So you have the parent process with PID 1, and then it creates 3 children with unique PID, PID 8415, PID 2, and PID 3028, and these 3 children can create their own child process. So now, how to terminate a process? So in Linux system or Unix based system, it can be done through exit system call. So once the process is terminated, the resources is now can be deallocated, and this can be done by the OS. Parent is also allowed to terminate the child process using abort system call. So this is a sudden termination can be carried out by parent because of several reasons. For example, if the child requests for allocate resources that is no longer available, or the resources is currently not sufficient, then the parent have the ability to abort the child process using abort system call. It can also because of the task assigned to the child is not required anymore, and also because the parent is exiting, and the policy of the OS is not allowing the child to continue to be executed after the parent is terminated. So the parent is able to terminate its child process. This can be done by using abort system call. That doesn't allow the child process to run without parent, then it can do that through what we call cascading termination. Cascading termination. This can be carried out by the OS itself. For once the parent, if there is no parent waiting for any process, for a child process, that is a zombie. For if the parent is terminated without waiting, then the process become in what we call orphan. So this is the child process without parent. So it can be either a zombie or orphan process. Test communication. In this subtopic, we discuss on the communication between different processes. Okay, there are two types of process in the system. Either they are independent, or they can also cooperating with each other. In the case of cooperating process, they can share data. Whereas for independent process, whatever happen to one process will not affect, or that process will not be affected by another process. There are many advantages of cooperating process. For example, one is information sharing, and also when you want to speed up the competition, or you want to achieve what we call modularity. Now, when it comes to cooperating process, you need a mechanism that we call inter-process communication, or IPC. Now, when implementing IPC, you have two options: either shared memory or message passing. If you want to allow two processes to communicate to each other, you have two options. One is through message passing mechanism, or shared memory mechanism. So in the scenario of message passing, the two processes can communicate to each other through message queue. This queue is handled by the kernel. The second option is through shared memory. So for this scenario, process A and process B store the data in the same memory space. That's why the implementation is much easier with shared memory compared to message passing, where you need to handle the message queue. Whereas for shared memory, all you need to do is to put the data in the memory, and then as long as both process have access to that same memory, they can communicate, because any data that they want to share, they can simply put it in the same memory space that accessible to both process A and process B. The control of the data in the shared memory is by the process itself. It is not managed or controlled by the operating system. What the two processes need to know is to establish in an area of memory that they agree to be used to store the data to be shared. Now, before we go detail in shared memory, we need to understand this paradigm, what we call producer-consumer problem. So in this paradigm, you have one process act as a producer, and in the other end you have another process act as a consumer. Now, one process become the producer, another process become the consumer. There are many ways to implement this paradigm. In the case of shared memory, this can be done by introducing a buffer. So what happen here, producer, when it want to share any data, it will put the data in a buffer, and the consumer, instead of directly asking the data directly from the producer, it will check the buffer. So if there is any data in the buffer, it will get it or obtain it from the buffer and make it empty or available for next data. So this is the solution provided by shared memory, where the data is shared by buffer mechanism. Now, there are two options when it comes to preparing the buffer. So either it is unbounded buffer or bounded buffer. So in the case of unbounded buffer, there is no limit, no limit of size. That means producer can store any amount of data into the buffer. But when it comes to bounded buffer, if the bounded buffer is the option, then producer can only put certain amount of data into the buffer. So if it is full, then the producer need to wait for the buffer to be emptied by the consumer. Come to naming issue. Of course, in naming issue you have the option of either direct or indirect communication. So indirect communication, when you want to utilize the send and receive operation, you need to specify the name of the process. For example, when sending a message, you need to specify the process. Similarly, in a receive operation, you need to specify the sender, which is the queue, and of course the second parameter is the message itself. The communication link can be symmetry or asymmetry. So in the case of asymmetry, only the sender name is required. The recipient is not required. In the case of indirect communication, there is no direct communication between the two processes. Instead, the data is sent to the mailbox. So the sender will send the data to the mailbox, and the receiving process will get the data from the mailbox. So there is no direct communication. The data is shared by mailbox mechanism. Again, similarly for this type of communication, it can be, the link can be unidirectional or bidirectional. How to use the send and receive? Instead of specifying the receiving process in the send operation, instead you identify the address of the mailbox. Similarly, in the receiving operation, instead of specifying the sender process, but over here you specify the address of the mailbox. With mailbox mechanism, it is not limited to two processes sharing the same mailbox. You can have more than two processes sharing the same mailbox. Now, but the question is, who is going to get the message if you have, for example, three processes sharing the same mailbox? So there are three options in terms of resolution. You can have only at most two processes, or you can allow one process at a time to receive the operation, or you can allow the system to select which one of the process it is allowed to receive. Message passing, you need to consider the synchronization. So it can be synchronous or asynchronous. So synchronous means blocking send and blocking receive. So that means the sender is blocked until the message is received. That means the sender cannot send another message until that message is received by the receiver. Okay. At the other end, for the receiver, it is blocked to receive other message until the message is available. Whereas for non-blocking mechanism, it is considered asynchronous. Non-blocking send means once the the data is sent, the process can continue. The process can continue executing its instruction. Similarly, for non-blocking receive, it allow the process to receive a valid message or even a null message. Now, it will become a big issue when both send and receive are blocking. So that means when this happen, they both process cannot proceed because both are blocking. Of communication is in a client server system. So in a client server system, you have three mechanisms of communication. The first option is through socket procedure or remote. The second option is through RPC or remote procedure call, and the last one is through pipes mechanism. So you have three options when it comes to communication in a client server system. Okay. Socket mechanism is very common. Internet, for example, that one is communication through socket. So you have the IP to identify the host, and then the host here means either it is a client or the server, and then you have the port that refer to the channel that you want to use for communication between the two hosts. So in this mechanism, port number 1024 below are well known. For example, port 80 is for internet HTTP protocol, 22 for telnet, 23 for FTP, and so on. And the IP address of 127.0.0.1 is used for loopback. Normally it is used for debugging the network. So this is how socket communication works. So you have the client X with its own unique IP address, and the web server will have another IP address. So the host open its port 1625. That is the channel to be used to send the data and to receive the data. And for the server, in this case web server, because we use port 80, it use port 80 to receive the request and also to send the data to the client. Of course, when you use socket communication or socket mechanism, you have the option of connection oriented or connectionless. Connection oriented is also known as TCP socket, and connectionless is UDP socket. Connectionless. Connection oriented means similar to telephone call. The communication will be ended once one of the member in the communication terminates terminates the connection. Whereas in a connection less, there is no continuous connection between the client and the server. So this is an example of source code that you can use to implement a server. The second option of what we call client server communication is through remote procedure call. This is very popular in Windows OS. So what happened here is you have the procedure stored on the server, then that procedure can be located or executed by the client side. So for client server communication is through pipe mechanism. So this is very popular in Unix, in Linux, and you can also make use of it in Windows OS. So in pipe mechanism, it can be the issue is it unidirectional or bidirectional? Is it half or full duplex? How about the relationship? Can it be a parent and child? And then is it possible to use pipe over a network? Because pipe is typically implemented on the same system, but can you apply it over a network? Okay. So in for ordinary pipe, normally a parent will create a pipe, and the parent use it to communicate to its child process. So that is ordinary pipe. The second option is name pipe, and this is where if there is no relationship of parent-child between the communicating process. So if it is between parent and child process, then that one is ordinary pipe. If the communication does not involve parent and child relationship, then it is name pipes. Now ordinary pipe, this one is straightforward. So you have the producer to write the data, and you have the consumer to read the data. So normally the producer is the parent and consumer are the children, the child process. Name pipe are considered more flexible. It allow bidirectional, and it assume no relationship, no parent-child relationship between the communicating process, and it is available for Unix and Windows. So these name pipe are available for both Unix and Windows system. And to end the topic for process management.